Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1994 baseball film, Little Big League. Now, this is a film that I have to be honest, even as a kid, I wasn't really a big fan of this one. And after watching it again, after all these years as an adult, yeah, I'm still not really that big on this movie. I think it's honestly a pretty bland baseball film. Now, it does have some really good baseball scenes in it, and there are some fun cameos from big baseball stars like Ken Griffey Jr. and Randy Johnson and a whole bunch of others. But it's just one of those films, though, that I think is just kind of monotonous and just kind of meh. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, though, I would like to give a special shout out to Brock for requesting this review. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal, my Patreon, or my Cash App. The links to all three are in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your requests as soon as I possibly can. Now, the film is directed by Andrew Scheinman, and this was his first and last film as a director because prior to this, he was just a producer. Produced A Few Good Men, Misery, Stand By Me. That was his claim to fame. But I believe he had a connection with Castle Rock, who produced this film, and as a result, I think he found a way to slide himself into the director's chair for this one. Also, I think it was a passion project of his because he's a big fan of baseball. So it's one of those things where he felt like, okay, I want to step in and I want to make sure this is done right. Because I guess he felt like a lot of other baseball movies that had come out before this for families, like Rookie of the Year, were not very true to the spirit of baseball. And that's a big part of why he wanted to do this. And you can definitely see that when it comes to the baseball scenes, even though they can get kind of monotonous, kind of repetitive in terms of the way that he shot them. They still are shot in a way that looks rather authentic. And at points, if you can get past the fact that there's nobody in the stands other than some cardboard cutouts at more than one occasion, uh, there is something to be said about the attention to detail when it comes to these baseball scenes and how plausible they are and how they at points look like you're watching highlights from an actual baseball game. So I definitely have to give Andrew credit for that, as well as for some other sequences like the end sequence with Billy when he goes back to the field and he is bombarded with chants by thousands of fans who were chanting his name. Like, that is an epic sequence, and it's shot in a way that really does fit the whole epic size and scope and feel that that sequence commanded. But because of his lack of experience as a director, and because of the fact that he's not really the guy who has the best eye for the camera or eye for shooting certain kinds of scenes, the movie at points looks kind of cheap. I have to be honest. It does. It doesn't look like it costs $20 million. It looks like it costs around the same budget as Major League Back to the Minors at points. Or it looks like it's something you would see on television, like a made for NBC movie or something, like, or ABC Family. Like, and that's not good. It really isn't. And a lot of shots in this are just very bland, just uninteresting, and don't really have the best amount of energy to them either. And for a film that has some scenes that are definitely trying to be kind of silly and playful, to have the direction not really match the scene definitely is a problem. And there's a lot of moments that are trying to be more emotional or sad or even happy, and those moments sometimes fall flat. There's an entire scene that takes place at a theme park, and it's shot in a way that makes it look like a boring commercial. So, like, there's a lot of bits of this direction where I think Scheinman simply does not shine, and I think he strikes out. I definitely don't think he hit a home run here. I do not feel that that was the case at all. It seems like he put more of a focus on how to shoot the baseball scenes in the most realistic way possible and didn't really have as much energy for anything else. Now, the film features a screenplay by Gregory K. Pincus. And I think the script is okay. I think it's another thing about this film that's just decent. It's good enough, but it's not great. I think that there was potential for something really special and really uh, good, but it just doesn't live up to the full potential because I don't think it has the right amount of plays. And I definitely don't think that there's enough being done here that makes this film into something that provides the best combination in terms of the types of talent that it has on base or the type of players that it has at its disposal. But I do feel that the concept of it is rather unique and fun. It deals with this 12-year-old boy named Billy Haywood, and he's a big fan of baseball, specifically the Minnesota Twins. His grandfather is actually the owner of the team, and he has a very close relationship and bond with his grandfather. And his grandfather, pretty early on in the story, he winds up passing away suddenly, and he gives Billy the twins in his will. And that right there is already a unique and fun concept for a sports film. But it goes one step further, and when Billy winds up getting into a spat with the current manager of the Twins and George Farrell, and it leads to Farrell getting fired by Billy because Farrell doesn't want to play ball. Billy winds up deciding to become the manager of the team himself. Not only do you have the 12-year-old who is the owner of the team, but you also have the 12-year-old who is the manager of the team at the same time. So I think the concept is solid. The execution, not so much. A big problem with this script is that other than maybe somebody like Jim Bowers and in part Lou Collins or maybe Blackout, there's not enough of these players on the team that have distinctive enough personalities to make them into like a team of lovable losers or guys with different sort of quirky personalities like in Major League or even in something like Angels in the Outfield. So what you have is a cast of baseball players who are just kind of bland. They're just as collectively there, other than maybe like a few exceptions. And Billy, the way that he's written is kind of in a similar way, although there are some moments where he does stand out. But the kid is kind of as somebody who's in this kind of position, he's not as wide-eyed as you think he would be. So there are moments where it seems like it's just kind of an adult in a kid's body, which can be kind of boring at points too. But thankfully there are some moments though where he really is able to be a kid. But I think there's a lot of moments though where he just seems like he's that kind of archetype where you have somebody who doesn't act their age. And so it just kind of leads to some exchanges with some of the players that's just kind of forgettable. And the fact that there is no prime antagonist, there's no main antagonist in this entire story other than Billy himself is definitely, in my opinion, a major problem with this script. I understand the script has gotten praise by critics like Roger Ebert for how it goes against the grain. It's not what you expect, but it really needed an antagonist. It needed something other than just Billy going against himself. Because that's really what the script is in terms of the conflict. It's Billy dealing with the pressures and the reality of being a manager of a baseball team and the celebrity status and and how much it changes him as a person and how he becomes something that he hates, somebody who doesn't want to have fun anymore and somebody who's just focused on winning, and he grows up too fast. And that is something that, okay, it can work, but this is something that's been so played out by this point in terms of a ton of other movies where you had a kid who's given responsibility and then winds up becoming somebody that he doesn't want to be, like Big, for instance. But I mean, that is a little different because it's a kid in an adult body because of a wish. But it's a similar sort of thing where the kid grows up too fast. You kind of have that going on here. You even saw the whole stuff, okay, with the coach who he was preaching to his players about having fun and learning about the joys of playing a sport for a living. It kind of ties into D2 The Mighty Ducks with Coach Bombay and the whole arc with him in that film, where he is no longer Mr. Fun like he was in the first movie. And there's a lot of things here because of the fact that, okay, there's no other antagonist and there's no other major conflict other than Billy against himself. It can get a little tedious because I don't really buy Lou as an antagonist. Even when he's dating Jenny, Billy's mom, and Billy doesn't like it. I don't really buy the opponents the twins are playing as antagonists because there's no clear rival team. That's another problem. There's no clear rival team. You don't even have that. It seems like the Mariners are going to be that, but they only really feel like that in the last game. And what makes it frustrating even more so is because of the fact that they had an antagonist right there in the script and they tossed him aside and just threw him away. They fired him. And the antagonist that they could have had is Farrell, the original manager of the Twins who got fired by Billy. And I think this film would have been so much better if you set up the Mariners as a rival with the Twins pretty early on. Maybe one of the games at the start they're crushed by the Mariners, and or it's just a team that's just a constant thorn in their side. They can't seem to get over the hump. They can't seem to beat them. They're not even close. You know, every time they play the Mariners, they get creamed, and they wind up eventually going on a run, the Twins, when they start buying into Billy's uh, um, concept and his idea of just playing ball for fun and not worrying about the consequences or worrying about the pressures. And while that is happening, the Mariners actually go on their own slump, and you follow the Mariners going on a slump. And then, the Twins actually have a game during their streak where they beat the Mariners. And they're the ones that actually flip the script and they beat the Mariners and they beat them. Maybe they don't cream them, but they actually win. And that kickstarts an even longer win streak for the Twins. And the Mariners are in this skid, and the Mariners wind up firing their manager, and then Farrell comes in because they don't have as many options to have somebody come in, halfway through the season. So he comes in, and when Billy is letting everything get to his head too much and he's not having fun and it's rubbing off on the team and the Twins go on a skid, the Mariners are getting better. The Mariners are bouncing back under Farrell. It all culminates in the final, the final game, where the Twins go up against the Mariners. And I know some people will be like, "Oh, well, you can't have the ending the way that it is if they lose." I'm like, no, you could still have it. You could still have it set up that way. Because I would keep that, because that is something that definitely helps this script stand out. And I will give the writer credit for that. Is that he does have an ending where it's not typical, where the Twins don't win the game. They don't go to the playoffs. And I think you can still do that with this setup. And it's a close game. And the Twins play the Mariners to the wire. And Farrell at the end gets respect for Billy. And he says he was wrong about him, and they shake hands and they show some sportsmanship, and the Mariners celebrate. And then you still have that moment where Billy goes out onto the field and the fans chant his name. But then you still have some other sort of conflict going on. You still have something that a clear enemy that the Twins have, or a rival of some sort, and you have somebody that Billy is definitely trying to one up and trying to beat. Maybe that could have been what led to things getting worse for the Twins, is because Billy was intimidated by Farrell. And another thing that is inconsistent and not as good as it could be is the comedy. There are some funny bits. There's a fun exchange between Billy and his friends about Batman going through the drive-through. There's a fun scene involving a softcore porno at a motel room. And there's some fun stuff with Bowers in particular. The stuff with the water balloons. Bowers's whole thing where he's got a glove with like what looks like that thing with on the Nike pump, the shoe that you push the thing and it pumps the shoe up. Well, he has it on his glove, and he presses this thing a couple times just to see, what might happen. And his teammates get a save and get an out. So then he just continues to pump the thing on his uh, glove multiple times, and each time something good happens. So he just keeps escalating. So he keeps going and pumps it more and more times each time that they get an out. And I like that. That was fun. That was clever. And there's other moments like that where the script incorporates things that I think do add some personality, do add some charm to these players. There's some fun stuff in the dugout, for instance. There's a lot of focus on Lou Collins, and Lou Collins as a character is bland. I gotta be honest, he's a bland character. The romance between him and Jenny is bland, and that's another subplot that's pretty extensive in this film. It's sweet. I mean, I can definitely tell that the two are a nice couple, but it's still kind of a bland romance. There's even a scene where Billy goes and plays stickball and remembers how to have fun, which reminded me of Richie Rich. And that's another thing. There's a lot of stuff that reminds me of other movies from around this time. For a script that gets all this credit for being against the grain and original and different because of its ending and a few things, there's a lot of things about it that are very familiar. Uh, for instance, even the whole idea of this kid who winds up becoming a part of a Major League Baseball team. It's a similar plot to Rookie of the Year, where in Rookie of the Year, the kid hurts his arm, becomes a supernaturally good pitcher, and then winds up pitching for the Cubs and deals with the pressures of being a celebrity and being a ball player. Um, and that ultimately has an effect on his relationship, his friendship with his friends, which is exactly what happens in this. So, I mean, there's this, it's almost the exact same thing, but instead of it being Billy playing for the Twins, he's the manager of the Twins, and he's also the owner. Other than that, it's really the same dynamic, pretty much, and it's two friends too, if I remember correctly, in that too. And there's like a mentor, an older guy who's like a mentor for a Billy, who's kind of the comic relief, and John Ashton's character Mac, just like a Daniel Stern's character in Rookie of the Year, but not as goofy, but still has those moments where he's, definitely a little more silly and definitely clearly trying to be more of the comic relief guy. So I'm just saying there are things about it that are familiar. Like even the bit with the theme park. Like I think there was something with the theme park in Rookie of the Year, if I remember correctly, as well. So there's a lot of stuff in this that just feels like it's Xeroxed from other films from around the same time. While there are things that are original and are a little different, there's a lot of it that just feels very familiar. And it's something that contributes to the movie really feeling like you're eating a box of stale Cracker Jacks. I still think the script is still decent. It doesn't end in typical fashion where it's like a fairy tale ending where they win. That doesn't happen. So I will give the script credit for that. And that moment at the end with Billy when he walks out on the field and everybody's chanting his name and takes his hat off and holds it in midair, and then it freeze frames and then you get to the end credits. It's a great ending to the movie. I just wish that it was for a better film and a better story with more engaging, likable, charismatic characters, a clear antagonist, some kind of rival, whether it's the Mariners or somebody else. Because, I mean, even Major League had a clear rival in the Yankees. Like, you had something. Like, it just felt like there was a lot lacking when it comes to this script and this overall story. The cast, it's also something that's fine. Luke Edwards, I don't think he's the most charismatic actor. I think he's got a good look. I think he definitely has a good presence. And what I mean by good look is like he looks the part. He looks like he could be a 12-year-old kid who's really into baseball and could definitely hold up when it comes to being a manager of a baseball team and handling all these other different personalities. Kid who's wiser than his years, but he doesn't have as much charm as other young actors from this time. So he makes up for it with, well, he tries to make up for it in other ways, but at the end of the day, there's still some moments where his line delivery is kind of flat, and he just doesn't have that spark that some of those other kid actors had around the same time, like Thomas from Rookie of the Year. Timothy Busfield, he is serviceable. He is serviceable as he pretty much always is in this. He's fine, but he's not nothing fantastic. And he was a last minute replacement for Brad Johnson, who I guess was the original actor cast in this role. I don't think Brad Johnson would have really made that much of a difference. Busfield is decent enough. I've definitely seen worse, but I've also seen better. I mean, he's no Gary Busey, and he definitely isn't any of the more memorable stars of Major League. But he's fine in a pinch. John Ashton, I love him a lot. I like him as an actor. He's fun in this, in a very kind of thankless role in a lot of ways. Like he's just there. He's there to be comic relief, dealing with word problems for a good chunk of the movie. Other than that, like he's not really in it a lot, but it's still fun to see John Ashton. Ashley Crow, I thought she was really good. I think the actress who played Billy's mom was definitely one of the better performers in this film. Kevin Dunn, just, I mean, there's really not much to say about his role. It's like he showed up for like a few scenes and then was done, and that was really it. The two friends, Billy L. Sullivan and Miles Folner, as Chuck and Joey, they were fine. They were so. Jonathan Silverman was fun, a lot of fun, in fact. I really enjoyed seeing Jonathan Silverman as Bowers. In fact, almost to the point where I wish he was the lead. I wish he was Lou. I wish he was Lou Collins and Timothy Busfield was one of the other players on the team because he had something that Busfield just did not have at all to me. Like he had that charm, that charisma, and I really enjoyed his scenes. And I don't think he was in it enough. And I've always been a fan of Jonathan since Weekend at Bernie's. So that is something I definitely feel was a bit of a missed opportunity because it's not like Timothy Busfield was that much bigger of a star than Jonathan Silverman. Dwayne Davis is also in this, who was Featherstone in Necessary Roughness, another 90s sports comedy. And I really enjoy that one. I would say that one to me is more underrated than Little Big League, but that's just me personally. And he's good in this too. Bradley J. Leslie, I enjoyed as Blackout. In a lot of ways, he kind of reminded me of Lyle Lozado, um, and in terms of like his intensity, um, as well as the softer side that he can show from time to time and his comedic chops. Scott Patterson was Mike McGreevy. I thought his performance was okay. Like he's not the best actor, but he's a good baseball player. And I think that's a lot of the players in this, a lot of the teammates, they weren't cast for their acting. They were cast for their baseball ability. And that was the point. That was what the producers, that was what the director, that was what people were looking for. And you got that. You got some really good sound, technically uh, um, realistic baseball scenes and real baseball players making some real plays. But that has its drawbacks as well, because then you have the limitations that come with baseball players who aren't actors. And that's what you get with like John Minch as the catcher, and Antonio Lewis Todd as Mickey Scales, and Joseph Lattimore as Lonnie Ritter, and Kevin Elster as the shortstop, Pat, and Michael Papajohn as Tucker Kane, and Wolfgang Bodison as Spencer Hamilton, and Leon Durham as Leon. And there are some other people, like I definitely want to mention Jason Robards as Thomas Haywood, Billy's grandfather. He was such a treat in this, such a joy to watch. He's just such a remarkable talent. And he was only in it for like maybe 5 minutes, if even that. And it was special. Like it was a really memorable, strong, small role by him. Dennis Farina was also great in his own way as the fiery manager of the Twins. Kind of reminded me of Danny Glover in the Angels in Outfield remake. Um, so it was nice to see Dennis Farina. It was not so nice to not see him again after his character got fired. This movie needed more Farina freakouts, and I think this would have been a lot better if it had that. And then you had like MLB players who played themselves in this. Ken Griffey Jr., um, and Randy Johnson, um, Sandy Alomar Jr., Wally Joyner, Rafael Palmiero, Dean Palmer, and you also and a bunch of others too. And you also had Chris Berman from like ESPN who played himself and actually was willing to poke fun at his on-air personality, which was fun to see. So the cast, not the best in the world, but it was fine. It was serviceable enough. And I feel the same way about the cinematography by Donald D. Thorin and the editing by Michael Jablow. Like, neither of those things blow, but they're not great. And the music by Stanley Clarke, I didn't really care for. It was like this weird mix of blues and I think it was trying to sound like old fashioned, kind of like a throwback, but it didn't quite work. There were some moments though where I would say that I think the score was effective, like at the end, but there were a lot of moments where the score just, I don't know, was just very generic sounding. And then you had the songs that they chose for the soundtrack, and that made it even worse. Other than Centerfield, most of the songs sucked. They were just really generic, boring blues songs that might have worked in a different context. But when you have like baseball highlights and you have like just a regular old blues song, it just doesn't really feel like it's the best mix. And it makes those scenes kind of bland. And that's a big problem with this movie. It's just a bland baseball movie. The baseball scenes are really good. They're really well done. That's not all that I'm looking for out of a movie. Like I honestly give this film a lot of credit and the filmmakers a lot of credit for the baseball scenes. And seeing baseball players like Ken Griffey Jr. and Randy Johnson. But everything else around it is just so bland and just not really that entertaining most of the time. Like stuff happens, but it's not doesn't happen in that memorable of a way. It's just kind of unimaginative at points and dry and drab. And it doesn't help either that it's almost 2 hours. It's way too long for a movie like this. And not a lot happens either for it to warrant that much of a runtime. So to me, I know this film has a cult following. I know people really love it. But for me, this is not major league entertainment. This is little league entertainment. It really is. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Little Big League. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.